Welcome to the twisted, blood-soaked, oddly philosophical world of Quentin Tarantino's bad guys, where villains quote scripture before blowing your brains out, discuss the cultural significance of hamburgers while planning your torture, and somehow make you root for them even as they're doing unspeakably horrible things to perfectly innocent people. These aren't your garden variety movie villains twirling mustaches and cackling maniacally. Oh no, Tarantino's antagonists are far more dangerous, because they're the kind of people you'd actually want to have a beer with, right up until they start removing your appendages with medieval torture devices. What makes a Tarantino villain so special? Well, imagine if your most charming friend, the one who always knows the perfect thing to say at parties, suddenly decided that murder was a reasonable career choice. That's essentially what we're dealing with here. These characters possess an intellectual charisma that makes them absolutely magnetic to watch, even when they're doing things that should make you run screaming from the theater. They'll engage you in fascinating conversations about pop culture minutiae, debate the philosophical implications of divine intervention, or explain the historical significance of slave names, all while casually planning your elaborate demise. It's this combination of charm and violence, intelligence and brutality that makes them so unforgettable and so deeply unsettling. The unpredictability factor cannot be overstated. One moment they're cracking jokes and sharing personal anecdotes, the next they're slicing off ears to the tune of Stuck in the Middle with You. You never know when the switch will flip from charming conversationalist to homicidal maniac, which keeps audiences in a constant state of nervous tension. This isn't random violence for shock value either, it's carefully calculated chaos that serves the story while revealing character depth. Perhaps most disturbing of all is their moral flexibility. These aren't cartoonish representations of pure evil. They're complex, three-dimensional characters with understandable motivations and twisted ethical codes. They force audiences to confront uncomfortable questions about justice, revenge, and human nature itself. When you find yourself nodding along with a philosophical killer's reasoning, you start to wonder what that says about your own moral compass. Reservoir Dogs. Let's begin our journey through Tarantino's rogues gallery with Reservoir Dogs, the film that announced to the world that a new kind of filmmaker had arrived, one who understood that the most terrifying villains are the ones who seem almost normal. The crown jewel of this collection is Mr. Blonde, played with chilling nonchalance by Michael Madsen. Here's a man who approaches torture the way most people approach weekend hobbies, with genuine enthusiasm and careful attention to detail. The infamous ear-cutting scene remains one of cinema's most disturbing moments, not just for its graphic violence, but for how casually Blonde treats mutilation as performance art. He's humming along to Stealer's Wheel like he's washing dishes, completely disconnected from the horror he's inflicting. What makes Mr. Blonde particularly terrifying is his apparent normalcy. He's not foaming at the mouth or delivering grandiose villain speeches. He's just a working professional doing his job. And his job happens to involve creative applications of razor blades. This workmanlike approach to violence makes him infinitely more unsettling than any scenery-chewing madman. He's the coworker who never misses deadlines and always brings donuts to staff meetings, except his performance reviews include sections on innovative torture techniques. The Cabot crime family adds another layer to the film's criminal ecosystem. Joe Cabot represents old-school mob leadership with paternal overtones, the kind of boss who will have you killed but genuinely feel bad about the inconvenience it causes your family. His son, Nice Guy Eddie, embodies nepotism at its finest, a crime boss's heir who's learned all the family business except the crucial part about maintaining emotional distance from the work. Their dynamic provides dark comedy that somehow makes the violence even more disturbing by treating it as mundane family business. Then there's the Rainbow Coalition of criminals, each color-coded conspirator bringing their own brand of villainy to the heist gone wrong. Mr. Pink is paranoid professionalism incarnate, probably right about everything, but too abrasively annoying for anyone to listen to his warnings until it's too late. Mr. White represents the most dangerous type of criminal, the one with a heart of gold who actually cares about his colleagues. In Tarantino's universe, having feelings makes you vulnerable, and vulnerability gets you killed. Loving this deep dive into Tarantino's twisted minds? Give us a thumbs up and share with your movie-loving friends. Subscribe and ring that notification bell for weekly film content. Pulp Fiction. Pulp Fiction elevated the villain game by asking what would happen if cold-blooded killers spent their downtime having deep philosophical discussions about the meaning of life, divine intervention, and the proper way to eat a burger in Europe. Vincent Vega and Jules Winfield aren't your typical hitmen. They're more like graduate students who happen to kill people for tuition money. Vincent, brought to life by John Travolta's career-reviving performance, approaches murder with the same casual attitude most people bring to grocery shopping. He's perpetually more concerned about his dealer's heroin quality personality than the moral implications of shooting people in apartments for a living. Meanwhile, Jules represents something far more interesting, a killer having an existential crisis, complete with biblical quotations and theories about divine intervention. Their partnership works brilliantly because they represent two completely different approaches to the criminal lifestyle. Vincent is the eternal teenager, more worried about what's cool than what's right, the kind of guy who'd debate the merits of different European hamburger names while stepping over corpses. Jules, on the other hand, is beginning to question whether there might be more to existence than shooting people for money, though he's still quite good at the shooting part. Together, they create some of cinema's most quotable dialogue while casually cleaning up blood spatter and disposing of bodies like it's just another Tuesday at the office. Marcellus Wallace, embodied by Ving Rhames, with quiet, menacing intensity, operates on simple principles that make perfect sense within his worldview. Cross him, and you'll discover creative new definitions of physical pain. Show respect, and he might let you live long enough to make the same mistake twice. Wallace doesn't need to raise his voice or make threats, because everyone already knows what happens to people who disappoint him. He's the kind of crime boss who can make throwing someone off a building sound like a reasonable business decision while discussing it over breakfast. Then there's Zed, proof that not all Tarantino villains come with intellectual charm and witty banter. Sometimes monsters are just monsters, representing pure, unfiltered evil without philosophical depth or quotable dialogue. Zed serves as a reminder that while most of Tarantino's antagonists can be understood or even sympathized with on some level, true predators exist beyond redemption or comprehension. He's the character that makes you actively root for Marcellus Wallace's revenge, which is quite an accomplishment in moral manipulation. Jackie Brown showcased Tarantino's ability to create villains who blur the line between perpetrator and victim, showing how circumstances can transform ordinary people into dangerous criminals. Ordell Robbie, with Samuel L. Jackson delivering another memorable performance, combines the smooth-talking charm of a used car salesman with the moral flexibility of a seasoned politician. He's genuinely likable, the kind of arms dealer who'd sell you weapons while sincerely asking about your family's health and remembering your children's names. His downfall comes from consistently underestimating the women in his life, a recurring theme that runs through Tarantino's work like a bloody thread. Louis Gara, played by Robert De Niro in one of his most understated roles, represents the ultimate laid-back criminal. He's so relaxed about violence that it becomes genuinely unnerving to watch. Louis treats murder like a minor inconvenience, the kind of thing that's annoying but necessary, like paying taxes or going to the dentist. His casual attitude toward killing makes every scene he's in feel like a powder keg waiting to explode, because you never know when his laid-back demeanor will give way to sudden, brutal action. Melanie Ralston, brought to manipulative life by Bridget Fonda, embodies everything dangerous about underestimating people based on appearances. She looks like a harmless California beach girl who'd be more concerned with her tan than criminal enterprises. But beneath that sun-kissed exterior lurks a calculating mind that's always 3 steps ahead of everyone else's schemes. Melanie represents the femme fatale archetype updated for modern audiences, proving that the most dangerous predators often wear the most innocent faces. Kill Bill. The Kill Bill films gave Tarantino carte blanche to create an entire organization of memorable villains, each with their own fighting style, twisted personality, and elaborate death scene. Bill himself, portrayed by David Carradine with paternal menace, stands as perhaps Tarantino's most complex antagonist. He's simultaneously father figure, mentor, and ultimate betrayer, capable of delivering touching speeches about Superman's secret identity while planning your execution with methodical precision. Bill's tragedy lies in his genuine love for the people he destroys, making his actions both more understandable and infinitely more unforgivable. Elle Driver, played by Daryl Hannah with delicious malevolence, brings petty jealousy to murderous extremes. She's the kind of villain who'll kill you for sleeping with her boyfriend, then steal your eyeball as a trophy because waste not, want not. Elle's one-eyed obsession with revenge makes her simultaneously pathetic and terrifying, a woman so consumed by jealousy that she's willing to destroy everything around her just to feel superior for 5 minutes. Michael Madsen returns to Tarantino's universe as Bud, the burnout brother who traded his samurai sword for a double-wide trailer and a minimum-wage job cleaning strip club toilets. Bud represents what happens when legendary killers try to retire and discover that pension plans don't typically cover former assassins. His laid-back approach to murder, treating killing like any other blue-collar job, somehow makes him more dangerous than his more dramatic siblings, because he's given up pretending there's anything noble about violence. Gogo Yubari, embodied by Chiaki Kuriyama with gleeful psychosis, demonstrates that the most dangerous packages often come in deceptive wrapping. She looks like a Japanese schoolgirl who should be worried about math tests and school festivals, mortals, but fights like a demon unleashed from the deepest circles of hell. Her meteor hammer becomes an extension of her twisted personality, proof that appearances can be not just deceiving, but absolutely fatal. Death Proof introduced audiences to stuntman Mike, Kurt Russell's masterclass in creepy charisma wrapped in automotive homicide. Mike represents the ultimate predator, charming enough to gain trust, skilled enough to execute elaborate murder schemes, and cowardly enough to target victims he perceives as helpless. He weaponizes both his personality and his death-proof car, turning casual conversations into hunting expeditions and highway encounters into execution methods. His downfall comes when he finally encounters women who refuse to play the victim role, leading to one of cinema's most satisfying instances of comeuppance. What makes stuntman Mike particularly unsettling is Russell's performance, which makes him genuinely likable in small doses. He's the kind of guy you'd enjoy having a beer with and swapping stories about old movies, right up until you realize he's been studying your habits and planning to turn you into an automotive casualty statistic. Inglourious Basterds. Inglourious Basterds allowed Tarantino to tackle history's greatest villains while adding his signature twisted perspective to World War II. Hans Landa, brought to terrifying life by Christoph Waltz's career-defining performance, commits genocide with the enthusiasm most people reserve for crossword puzzles. He's intellectually superior to almost everyone around him and takes obvious pleasure in verbal gamesmanship, making every conversation feel like a chess match where the stakes are literally life and death. Landa switches languages, loyalties, and personas with the ease of someone changing clothes, representing pragmatism taken to its most horrible extreme. Tarantino's version of Adolf Hitler strips away historical mystique to reveal the petty narcissist beneath the monster, a ranting madman whose tantrums expose the banality behind institutional evil. By portraying Hitler as a screaming child rather than an imposing figure, Tarantino forces audiences to confront how ordinary people can enable extraordinary evil through simple cowardice and self-interest. Frederick Zoller, played by Daniel Bruhl, represents propaganda's seductive power through his combination of movie star looks and enthusiastic Nazi ideology. He's handsome, charming, and genuinely likable, which makes his participation in genocidal politics all the more disturbing. Zoller shows how evil can wear attractive faces and speak in reasonable tones, making it far more dangerous than obvious monsters. Django Unchained. Django Unchained tackled America's original sin through Tarantino's violent lens, creating villains who embody slavery's institutional horror. Calvin Candy, with Leonardo DiCaprio bringing manic energy to plantation owner cruelty, represents educated barbarism at its most revolting. He can quote French philosophers while treating human beings like livestock, embodying the contradiction at antebellum Southern society's heart. Candy is sophisticated but not civilized, intelligent but not wise, making him a perfect representation of how education without empathy creates monsters. Samuel L. Jackson delivers perhaps his most complex performance as Stephen, a house slave whose survival strategy involves becoming more racist than his white masters. Stephen represents collaboration's tragic face, a man so completely internalized his oppression that he's become his own worst enemy. He's simultaneously victim and victimizer, making him one of Tarantino's most morally complicated characters, the Hateful Eight. The Hateful Eight creates a scenario where nearly everyone qualifies as a villain, making it Tarantino's most morally complex film. Jennifer Jason Leigh's Daisy Domergue combines sharp intelligence with criminal ruthlessness, proving that being a victim doesn't automatically make someone innocent. She's simultaneously sympathetic and terrifying, creating a character who defies easy moral categorization while keeping audiences guessing about her true motivations until the final scene. The film's confined setting creates paranoia as characters reveal hidden agendas and secret identities. Bob, Oswaldo Mowbray, and Joe Gage represent the ultimate danger of trusting strangers in lawless environments, where anyone might be plotting your demise while sharing coffee and conversation. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood tackles real-world evil through Hollywood fantasy, with the Manson family representing lost souls who found purpose in destruction. Charles Manson appears briefly as a pathetic con man whose charisma masks complete spiritual emptiness, while his followers embody the danger of young people seeking meaning in all the wrong places. Margaret Qualley, Austin Butler, and Mikey Madison bring terrifying enthusiasm to their roles as brainwashed cultists, showing how charismatic leaders can transform confused kids into instruments of violence. What makes Tarantino's villains endure in popular culture is their fundamental humanity. They're not simple obstacles for heroes to overcome overcome, but fully realized characters whose stories deserve telling, even when we don't like what those stories reveal about human nature. They force audiences to confront uncomfortable truths about violence, justice, and the capacity for both good and evil that exists in every human heart. These characters succeed because they reflect our own contradictions, the darkness that lurks beneath civilized surfaces, and the thin line separating order from chaos. Which Tarantino villain terrifies you most? Like this video, subscribe for more film analysis, and hit notifications so you never miss our latest breakdowns. Share your thoughts below.